Hey Rockstars, I'm JB, expert salesperson and master presenter.
I'm the doctor, psychologist, and behavioral expert.
This is the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab podcast.
We're high-performance coaches that help service-based professionals and entrepreneurs take their skills to the next level.
70% of entrepreneurs fail, which is why every week we have real talk with real entrepreneurs to help ensure you are not one of them.
We're also the inventors of the Be Rich mindset,
where we rise to mastery,
inspire greatness,
celebrate knowledge,
and help others along the way.
So join us in the lab.
And now, on to the show.
Welcome back to the EML podcast. I'm JB.
I'm the doctor.
For all of you listeners who have listened in previously and are joining us again, thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate you. Sometimes we're shocked and awed that you return, but we're grateful for you. And we're really excited to have any of our newest listeners joining us for the first time. You don't even know what you've gotten yourselves into yet.
Where the heck have you been?
I know, right? Where have they been? You know, it's my favorite time of the year, right, Doc?
Your son's back in school?
Yeah, I don't mind that. It's also college football season. And for those of you who know me, know I'm a diehard college football fan. If you can see the video, you can see right behind me, I got a little Penn State gear out there. So super pumped for the start of the season and the start of the year.
That means regular football season too, right?
It does. And if you're a TV junkie, you might even get some new TV shows or something if they're still filming those things.
That's good in case we wind up in the end of the year lockdown again or something. I need something to watch at that point.
Well, let's just hope they have seasons. That's my biggest goal right now. Let's just have a season. Anybody who does watch college football should know that as a Penn Stater, I'm very excited for a new season and to forget last season. I do not want to have to drown another season away.
So you're not expecting the same kind of season?
I would hope for a much better season this year. But
so
yeah,
two wins.
Hard. All right. Yeah, back it up. We got a guest on the show. We can't have me yelling at you already. Speaking of, if you're new to the podcast, we like to have real talk with real professionals and entrepreneurs, service-based professionals, learn who they are, what they are doing, and what's brought them to where they're at. And I'm pretty pumped because we've got a unique guest joining us today, Mr. Jeff Mount. And Jeff is kind of more, I would say, in the financial services FinTech space, along with the technology side, which is pretty cool because he gets to marry something I like to geek out around and something that's very much in my background as well. So Jeff owns Real Intelligence. He's a co-founder, I believe, of Real Intelligence. And Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Great to be here.
Really excited to have you, man. FinTech, broad topic. Just give us a kind of overview of what you're doing out there. Give our listeners a sense of what you've built, because you've really created something pretty unique, it sounds like. And we'd love to have you share that with everybody right up front.
So I was in the financial services business for about 25 years as what they call a wholesaler. Most people in the general public don't know what that is. So I worked for a number of what they call turnkey asset management programs. And we would be given a region. Mine was New England and upstate New York. And we would try to get advisors to basically migrate all their assets over to us in an effort to give scale to them and, of course, to allow us to collect our fees. About 2 years ago, I'd had it. I was enough of being a robot. I'm kind of a creative guy. And some people who are in corporate America might say, geez, we don't want someone who's that creative. We want someone who just does what we tell them to do. So I reconnected with Mike Helgeson, who was one of my best clients for many, many years. And he came to me and said, you put me through that training program 13 years ago. And of course, it really worked out well for me. But I wrote this book and I never published it. Would you help me do that? And I said, maybe, let me take a look at it. And it was broken into 3 parts. And the first thing you have to know about Mike is he's a rocket scientist. Really, really smart guy. The first third of the book was this dynamic mapping method of financial planning, which has a lot of differences from the type of financial planning that's been used and accepted in the industry today. It's more human-centered, less institutionally driven. The second part of the book was a bunch of case studies to help people understand how something could be understood much, much easier than the typical 50 to 300 page financial plan that you might get from an advisor and pay $5,000 for. This is going to be just a couple pieces of paper. However, the third part of the book was 85 pages of math. I'm a good salesman, but I'm not that good. I can't sell this thing. So my suggestion was, Mike, why don't we take the first two parts of this, and it's pretty sophisticated stuff. Why don't we write it for advisors rather than investors? And that third part, let's try to make this thing really easy for people. Let's build an app that takes all this complex math and makes it look just so simple that anyone could use it. Our original intention was to use this at both the training program that I put him through 13 years ago and this app, this really sophisticated but simple calculator, and use it to help advisors become more productive. And I was going to travel the country and train these guys on this, and then COVID happened and I couldn't travel anywhere. So we this year made a big pivot and we said, okay, let's go direct to the consumer, but let's do so in multiple ways. We will redo the app, make it really intuitive. And with a premium package, which only costs $20 one time, you'd have access to 30 videos, which effectively give you all the knowledge you would normally be getting from an advisor anyway. And of course, you still have the calculator. And I'll go through what that thing looks like in a minute. But it would be direct to consumer through the App Store or Google Play, or also through corporate America. More recently, I've had some people get really creative and say, hey, this could be a bolt-on to 401k plans. So it is getting out to the general public, but not in the way we initially intended.
So there's a lot of scope there. And, I find it really interesting. So your initial thought process to this was, all right, we've got something built out, which is pretty unique and powerful. And we feel like it's going to be best served to bring it to the financial planning sector through the professionals.
Correct.
And then you kind of had a change of heart and said, no, wait a second, this is silly. This is disruptive. Let's disrupt. Let's bring it straight to the consumer. And I kind of even heard you say, hey, forget the financial planner, forget the advisor. We can provide at least, to an extent, that the same information they're disseminating to you as a retail consumer within this for $20. And you don't have to deal with them at all necessarily.
Right. Exactly. So part of what drove that was an understanding as we started the business 2 years ago. 85% of Americans have chosen not to work with a financial advisor. Now, if you told that to an advisor and they believed you, they would say, oh, well, that's the percentage of America that doesn't have any money. That is not true at all. There are a lot of people who mistrust financial advisors for one reason or another. We saw the opportunity set both through corporate America, through a bolt-on with 401ks. We now have an association with elivelihood.com. This is an opportunity to get to the general public directly. If you want to work with an advisor, we have trained some of these advisors on this method and we'll be happy to recommend them. But a lot of people, quite frankly, get enough from the videos that at least during the accumulation phase of your life, there's enough there. You really don't need anything else. Now, distribution's a lot more complicated. And of course, once you have a whole lot of money at risk, you really should have someone taking a very close look at all times on your portfolio to make sure you don't lose it. But I think what you'll find, and I think what people will find, is that the tools that are provided through this app are available at an incredibly low price and are incredibly valuable.
Well, and some of our listeners probably know, but I share a very similar background to you. I worked in that wholesale space, in the retirement income space specifically. So not for an asset manager, but for an insurance player in Fortune 50 company in the retirement income wholesale space, highly specialized. You're right. Nobody knows about that industry. But one absolute truth to it is there's very little trust for the financial services industry from the general public, and tons of people that don't trust financial planners in any way, shape, or form to do planning for them. And you don't need to be from the industry to know that, right? Haven't we seen multiple instances it's celebrities who have passed away in the last few years worth tens or hundreds of millions of dollars that don't even have a trust set up? They just, let's just give tens of millions of dollars to the Treasury. I love the IRS. Let me just donate $50 million to the IRS instead of to something I believe in or somebody I care about. Right? We see this. This happens all the time. So you're 100% on point with that. Doc, I got a question for you. Trust, right? When we think about trust, like you've got people with all the wealth in the world, and they're not doing some of this planning, right? Is it really just trust? Does it come down to lack of trust? Why do we do that?
Again, it's going to depend.
Of course.
I know you're ready for me to say that to you. But I think, yeah, trust probably plays a big part of it. Just not knowing, especially if it's new money for a lot of these people. A lot of people weren't raised with any kind of financial planning, and, keep your money under your mattress was always a safe, sound system. And people don't really understand what taxes are, right? So if you don't have a concept behind these things, and then you add in the fact that you're telling me some stranger is going to come tell me what to do with my money, that's a lot of stuff that adds up to just a whole bunch of missing out on good opportunities. And that's why things like these kind of conversations are super important. So I'd imagine there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are listening to us that are first generation entrepreneurs and just experiencing their first taste of money, and have never been taught that. We don't teach it in school, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. So this is a new education for a lot of people.
And I would imagine, you talk about 85% of people don't use financial planners. It can't just be lack of trust. So that's a big issue in that industry. There's a lot of do-it-yourselfers out there. So I imagine this probably really speaks to the do-it-yourselfer, just the person that says, I don't need to trust somebody else. I can figure it out on my own. I just need the tools to do it.
So the word trust is a pretty broad definition. We often think about someone's ethics and morals when we talk about the word trust, but it's not necessarily limited to that. It could be this person works for an insurance company, and we know he or she has a quota on how much of that company's product they're supposed to sell each year. Well, that's not necessarily going to be in my best interest. It's going to be in their best interest, in the company's best interest. So that breeds a little mistrust. There are people out there who like to sell nothing but big commission products as opposed to the fee-based products. That's not in my best interest. That's in their best interest. And then there are people out there who may have the best of intentions, but may not know as much as I know about investments. And I'm thinking, why am I going to take advice from somebody who knows less than I do about this activity? So when I say trust, it does cover a lot of things. It's not just morals and ethics, although clearly that's the stuff that makes the newspaper and front page of the Wall Street Journal. I think it's important. Yes, our stuff is going to help the do-it-yourselfer. I would also suggest that the advisors we have trained over the last couple of years are delivering an experience that is, quite frankly, not attainable by most middle-class millionaires. We define that as households who have $750,000 in investable assets and up. And we call this client service model the essential family office. For those who are familiar with the traditional family office, that is a business model that's generally reserved for families with $50 million or more, because it integrates the legal, accounting, property and casualty risk management, concierge travel services, investment management, trust services, etc., all into one place. Now, ours is a virtual version of that. But what it does do is it does have all conversations from all parties always focused on the family and the family purpose. And this is not going to cost any more than working with any other advisor who might be unfortunately married to an insurance company or some kind of distribution outlet like we just talked about. So whether you're do-it-yourself or you want this kind of service, we're doing our best to improve the experience for everybody in America. And eventually we want to take this thing worldwide.
That's an interesting thing to say, Jeff, because my experience is still being in the financial services industry is there's a whole lot of people out there that feel like they don't deserve to work with an advisor or planner. They're not worth enough, or they can't afford to do it. So to create accessibility for something as important as financial education and financial planning, is a pretty big vision, and it's a pretty difficult thing, I think, to implement. That's not easy. You're really shifting the way people do things and look at themselves, even under the umbrella of this. I'm kind of curious. It's a interesting situation. It's 25 years in the corporate world. Then you come into this space, which a big foundation in what you did, a ton of relationships, obviously, in what you did. That was really kind of the genesis of this was through one of those relationships, it sounds like. Mm-hmm. And now in a lot of ways, you're disrupting it. What's been the response from the relationships you built up over the years? Because in some ways, you're kind of, I would think some of the people that you know pretty well are looking at this like defensively, or like you're attacking them or their business or how they feed their families. What's that been like, if you don't mind me asking?
It's funny. Almost every one of my closest relationships on the retail advisor side has been understanding of what I'm doing. They've always known that I've been promoting this essential family office experience. So that's not new. The dynamic mapping part of it, nobody knew about because Mike kind of did that for himself. But now we've got the method out there. Yes, you're right. From the advisor's perspective, there have been some people who've become more defensive as we have targeted the 85% who chose not to work with in the first place. And I always remind them, that is not the group of people you have. It's not like I'm going after your specific clients. Now, could that potentially happen someday? Of course it could. Is that my target, my intention? No. But I think it's interesting, however, because I did work for distributors like you did. The distributors are incredibly intrigued with this. They're intrigued with it because it's fintech that is not necessarily aimed at the advisors anymore. It's aimed directly at the general public. And through corporate America, I mean, how many times have we heard HR departments at corporate America, large corporations talk about financial wellness? And that's all they do is they talk about it. There's nothing there to support it. And I get it. They're afraid of being labeled as a fiduciary because and I know what that fiduciary liability carries with it from a legal perspective. It's pretty serious. So the fact that we have these 30 strategic tip videos built into the app, which we, of course, make free for a corporation who white labels this, solves that issue. And at the same time, we can tie in real-time 401k values into the app. So it's projecting into the future how you're doing towards your goals, as well as, of course, their monthly contributions and company matches.
Yeah, I feel like application-wise for our listeners, there's something here that's being kind of flirted with, but not touched on directly. You took something, an experience, its foundation in financial services and the world you were in 25 years, and you looked around and said, "Hey, there's a big gap. There's a missing area here that we can fill." And then you start to really develop. And you turn around and say, well, it's not just for the advisor, it's for the consumer. Now it's not just for the consumer. Now we have the ability to actually really offer this as part of a health and wellness package for corporations, so let's build this out. And, we see that because even today, within the benefits package for my own family, I have to use an app to get certain medical rates for my wife and my son and I, and we have to engage on that app quarterly. So it's really intriguing to me where an idea germinates, where it begins, and kind of how it progresses and adapts and evolves. And it really very interesting. But I love that you took this foundation and you were able to use it and apply it into a new way to create something new and different that can really serve a lot of people. And that's the core of what I think we all try to do as entrepreneurs.
So because we're not visual, we're audio here, I need to explain what makes the app a little bit more different than just about everything else you've seen out there as it relates to financial planning calculators. Financial plans typically distribute the data in spreadsheet format and bar charts, maybe pie charts. We've gotten rid of all of that. And what we've done is we have created, by graphing out not just your assets, but your liabilities. And everyone always says, I mean, like credit card statements? No. I mean, the future value expectation of each of your family purposes. And I'm talking about retirement. Of course, the day you're conceived, your retirement, a future value starts to accumulate. And we're all playing catch up as we don't start working until 16, 17, 18 years old. We do this for your college tuition funding. We do this for your wedding. Your mortgage can go in here. By putting out both the liabilities, which create the hull of your boat, and the assets which create the sails of your boat, we can tie this into a sailing through life metaphor. And when you touch on the screen at any part of your boat, it actually is touching on a year and a value, the value either of where you should be in terms of your personal benchmark or where you actually are in terms of your assets. And then also the master course rises in the year you decide to retire to the number of dollars you need to actually retire. You can input social security values, deferred compensation values, all that stuff is available to include in this. And then of course, the fun part is when you get to the carousel and start saying, okay, let's take a look at all these purposes and how they strategically might conflict with each other. Probably one of the best examples of this that I've seen is over the last 20 years, we've seen interest rates drop consistently and people have been refinancing their mortgage again and again. How many of those people didn't stop to think about when that 30-year term was going to end? They just wanted a lower rate, a lower payment.
Most of them, speaking from experience.
Right. So what's cool about this thing is you go into the mortgage calculator, which you can do in the carousel part of the app, and you can say, okay, this thing's going 10 years into my retirement. That is a huge burden because those first 10 years, most financial planners call them the go-go years. You're still young and healthy enough to go out and do all the things you never had time for while you were working, and you've got money. So you go out and you have fun. Well, you're not necessarily going to have as much fun when you know you have the burden of 10 more years of your mortgage payments, and it's really holding you down. So with this calculator, you can just use your finger and start making changes as to how much more you need to pay a month to make sure this thing's paid off right at retirement, which also reduces how much you need for retirement because the level of income you needed just went down by your mortgage payment. That's just an example of how the strategic conflicts that would have been missed in a traditional financial plan are easily caught by looking at your boat and the conflicts that exist on your boat. All of this can be done in 10 minutes or less.
I'm hearing a lot of wonderful things in this app that it does. Where my brain went was does like Kelly LeBrock come out of it if you type in enough different equations? And that's a weird science reference for our young audience.
Yes, I know Kelly LeBrock. Sure. Yeah. That's funny.
That's what I was waiting for.
Yeah.
That was the only comment you wanted to make. It was a good one.
Interesting.
It was a good one. All right, let's take a break a minute for our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Hey y'all, it's the doctor from JB and the Doctor. Just wanted to talk quickly about our 2-on-1 coaching service that we offer, as well as our group coaching program that's also available. As high-performance coaches for service-based professionals and entrepreneurs, we are hyper-focused on improving your presentation and positioning, powering up your productivity, and supercharging your sales. As we all know, people, we're just different, and one size does not fit all. So it's important to work with those that understand this and can tailor their program and training specific to your needs. And that is exactly what we do here at JB and the Doctor. With our Mastery with Science system and approach, we provide both the how and the why, proven by experience and backed by science. So to take advantage of this truly unique approach with the expertise of 2 coaches providing you with the very best of self and business coaching, just check out our website at jbandthedoctor.com/services for more information or to schedule an exploratory phone call. That's jbandthedoctor.com/services.
So Jeff, I love the metaphor you talked about, the sailboat. I feel like the last few podcasts we've had sailing as a metaphor, people talking about sailing quite a bit. So right on track. What I have is a question actually for the doctor is, is that we're taking something really complex and complicated and we're kind of drawing it out in a simple picture in a way. We're really simplifying it. Why do we respond better to that? And do we respond better to that?
Respond better to simple, or what was the question?
Yeah, no, just a metaphor in general, like the utilization of a metaphor. Why are they so effective?
I think both the answers would have been fine if we would said simple too, because I think it's things that we understand and we can relate to, right? We feel more comfortable with things that and I think I mentioned a few podcasts ago about that sports team metaphor, right? Of you feel connected to your sports team because you're comfortable with them. So people that also are interested in that sports team, you can feel comfortable with, you have something in common. So metaphors kind of relate things to things that we know that we can apply to. And I think hearing Jeff explain the app, I could see the benefit, especially we talked about earlier about the younger entrepreneurs that maybe don't have this experience. They understand apps, they understand technology in a ways they're not going to understand 80 pages of math. So talking to people where they are now the challenge is, some of the older investors might be a little bit more resistant to switching over to something like that because they're less familiar with it. But that's where you talked about your trained staff coming. So it is really just connecting to what people feel comfortable with and understand. And I mean, this is where the future is headed. So I could see where there's a lot of value in that.
Thank you.
Jeff, it's a lot, so retirement planning, all this financial planning, it's a lot. Using the sailboat metaphor, I guess, it's kind of like the Odyssey, right? I feel like some of us feel like we're Odysseus. God knows where we're going to end up in 20 years. I hope my dog's still there when I get home type of situation. But this seems like a way to kind of put a lot of that concern aside. Yeah, it really puts the tools at your fingertips to be able to remove some of that uncertainty.
You actually just hit on the improvements we did with the second version of the app, which are tailwinds and boulders. Tailwinds might be an inheritance, sale of a business, vested stock options. Boulders are divorce, layoffs, disabilities. Things happen that we don't expect. And we do have a number of videos and, of course, me kind of going through the tool on video to show people how they could adjust to those circumstances on the fly.
That's really, really neat. I'm gonna draw us back kind of. This is a relatively newer business, right? How long's the app been out?
The new app has only been out since June.
Since June. So yeah. in a lot of ways, we'll call it a brand new business.
It's a brand new business. Yes.
How are you getting word out there? How are you getting this in front of people? Because 85% of the country, I mean, you're 300 million people, give or take, almost, that you could hypothetically utilize this with. It. Take out kids, maybe you're dealing with 250 million people where it's pertinent. It's a huge number. How do you get it out there?
So we hired the Sasha Group, which is Gary Vaynerchuk's firm. Familiar with Gary V?
I think so.
Okay.
Who the fuck is that?
You know Gary V. So his firm created a social media go-to-market Bible for us. It's 130 pages going from the big vision all the way down to your daily activities, what time, what tone the message should be, and what platform it should be on. We've been doing this since March. So even before the app came out, promoting the website, promoting the podcast, and of course now promoting the app. And we do it twice a day, in the morning and the afternoon on various outlets, really all the outlets. And our social media footprint has exploded as a result of this. I am maxed out on Facebook friends. I've got 14,000 LinkedIn connections. TikTok, for crying out loud, I've got 3,000 followers. Yeah, I mean, that one's a goofy one, but as Gary calls it, it's beachfront property. Because there are so few entrepreneurs playing around with TikTok, and just a matter of time before it gets caught up and really goes. Just have to be patient with it. Twitter, I'm still new at. YouTube, I'm new with. Pinterest, I'm new with. But certainly Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, those I've become veterans at through this process. And we are definitely connecting with a lot of people. So it encourages downloads. It also, LinkedIn opens the doors on the HR side.
If you had a guess, I mean, bringing on a specialist, if you will, social media marketing specialist, having that Bible in place, the implementation, execution of that versus trying to do it without, where do you think you'd be?
Oh my God. I knew very little about social media. I knew LinkedIn pretty well, but that was it. And it was a big learning curve, but the fact is I've been able to do it, and it's worked pretty darn well. Yes, I'll make mistakes, but I'm posting so much, they almost get covered up immediately. So who cares?
Yeah. It speaks really to a whole lot of what we talk about in the EML, our Facebook community, where we have people just like you, professionals that everybody can outreach to. We can't be experts in everything, and we can't do everything ourselves. We're big believers in outsourcing. Really it's focus on what you're great at. And like most entrepreneurs, small business owners might be very technically fantastic at what you do, but the business is so much more than just the technical, right?
Yeah.
It's how do we get the audience? How do we get it in front of people? So I love hearing the success from that, because there's a big lesson for all our listeners there, where if you're not outsourcing, if you're not engaging experts, you really need to rethink that strategy. We have limited resources, time, money, willpower, and energy. And you got to balance that. So you got to bring on you need a team. You really do.
Without a doubt. Yep. Totally agree.
Here, Gary Vee almost has as many podcast listeners as us.
Love that.
He's close, right?
It's pretty close, I believe.
Love that.
Yeah.
He's a character. No doubt about it. He's a character.
Gary Vee, if you'd like to sponsor us, we'll take 2 cents,
Big fans of Andrew Media.
Yeah, we are. We love Gary Vee's authenticity, the fact that you get who you get. He's not afraid to be himself. Really have a lot of respect for what he does. So awesome to hear that. I think you're the first guest we've had that's utilized one of his companies and teams directly. So awesome hearing about the success.
Great.
Jeff, if you were to say, hey, in the next 18 to 24 months, this is where I expect us to be, where is it? And at that point in time, what's the biggest challenge?
So we are in the middle of a capital raise. We're trying to raise $2 million for 30% equity. Angels or VCs. Once we get that, and I anticipate October 1st through our business plan at least, that's when we'll have that cash, and we can hire a national sales manager who I already know who it's going to be, and then 3 divisionals under that person to really focus on the corporate America HR opportunity. That's just an endless opportunity, and there's just very little competition in that space, whereas in the broker dealer and RIA space there's a lot of competition, and a lot of very old school stubborn people who won't want to change and do things our way. So we think this is the right way to go.
Can I ask you a question before you jump past that? Would it be helpful to be connected to somebody in the venture cap space?
Certainly.
Yeah. So, and I stopped you for a reason. This is, you talk about the power of a community, power of a podcast. One of our most recent guests just happens to be in the venture capital PE space. Nice. And this is the type of thing that he might love to get involved with. So Doc, I'm just thinking putting Sam and Jeff together is an absolute no-brainer. I'm sure they'd hit it off. I just love that we have the power to be able to do that. And, that we've been able to empower something like this. It's really cool. I did not mean to cut you off, Jeff.
No, not at all.
I just think that's so cool.
So our business plan projects 2.4 million in revenue next year, 12 million the following year, and 18 million the following year, assuming we follow the plans. We have everything on time. Like we said, October 1st. We believe that those numbers are pretty easily attainable, largely because the white labeling it's a big ticket sale. elivelihood.com. We just signed a deal with them earlier this week. Their first referral to us will be a 200,000 person firm. So, there's tons of opportunity here, more so than the freemium, which is what we call it, the freemium download for the general Joe Schmo off of the App Store is not, it's going to generate some revenue, but it's not the big driver of our sales. It's just getting the word out there so that corporate America will take it.
Yeah, talking big boy numbers there in a couple of years. Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Thank you.
It was like an episode of Shark Tank. I felt like we just were on.
Hey, yeah, I don't think he'd give up the equity. Jeff, anything for our listeners? Any giveaways? Anything you've got special going on right now?
So as you know, the app is free. There's, like I said, 85 pages worth of math that have been squeezed into there and really made easy to use. You don't have to buy the premium, but I will tell you, in order to really learn how to manipulate this thing for whatever event there is, spend the $20 and you'll know how to do it, because we should walk you through all those tailwinds and boulders scenarios.
Now, are there financing terms for those of us that can't afford $20?
No, there are no financing terms.
I'm pretty confident most people can afford the $20 spend.
I think so.
We'll have the information in our show notes. I have personally downloaded the app and taken a look at this. It's absolutely awesome. I geek out over this stuff. So to me, it was just, it was playing in a sandbox, just a lot of fun seeing what you built, and really very impressed. And, just kudos to you for identifying a real gap between what that industry in the financial services world is trying to do and what consumer behavior is really allowing for and accepting, because 85% is a big number.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
If there's any chance of Kelly LeBrock being on there, I would download it this weekend.
And you got me focused on Kelly LeBrock at the moment.
It's
going right back to me.
Maybe she can sponsor. I don't know. Little celebrity sponsor.
I might need to be on your future advisory committee, because I think my idea just took it to the next
level. I think you might be onto something.
Oh, that's fantastic. Jeff.
Thanks for joining us, Jeff.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it having me on, and I look forward to catching up with you soon.
Absolutely, my friend. Thank you. Well, Doc, a couple of things there stood out to me. I mean, certainly bridging the gap when you have 15% penetration for the consumers, there's a big need not being solved. Right off the bat, Jeff's got that laser focus on where it needs to be.
Yeah, I always shoot for higher than 15% penetration. Generally.
This guy, you have me cracking up all episode, man. Yeah. Okay, getting myself back on track here. Bridging the gap, and I'm going to reiterate, how cool is it to be able to have, over the course of a couple weeks, somebody come on, looking to capital raise, looking inside the VC space. We just had a VC guy, very similar energy, very similar, I think a lot of commonality there. They just really seem like they would hit it off. I'm pretty excited about connecting the two of those guys, Jeff and Sam. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I mean, that is basically the whole point of our community, and being able to do that on the podcast itself is even better, because, I mean, that's the idea of interviewing these people, right? Is to get some of the people out there that are doing amazing things and connecting with other people that are doing amazing things. Both Sam and Jeff both live inside of the EML community on Facebook. So even if they weren't on the podcast, we could still connect them that way, right? That's the beauty of this whole thing, and it's part of the Be Rich mindset.
It's the entire concept of having the community in the first place. The EML community is designed to give you access to the resources that you need to be successful as an entrepreneur, as a business person, as a service-based professional. We want to have one singular space where you can have access to the resources, the insight, and the wisdom to be successful. 70, 80% of businesses fail. It's crazy. This is what we believe in. And the Be Rich mindset, helping others along the way. I mean, this is core. This is central. I'm super freaking pumped about it. I got to say.
I'm super freaking pumped about an app that's going to make me be able to create a Kelly LeBrock. He did promise that, right?
He didn't say no. So you got a chance.
So you're saying there's a chance.
That's right. Yep. Catch the reference. Hopefully all our listeners did too. Well, this is fun. I'm glad we had Jeff join on. It's fun to have somebody from the fintech space. It's fun to have somebody who shares my background and knows the world I came from, and vice versa.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to have two of you.
I can tell you were really focused on us and not Kelly over there. Hey, if this was your first episode, thanks for joining us. Stay tuned. We've got a lot of great content, a lot of great guests joining us every single week. Hopefully, maybe one day, it might even be you.
Wouldn't that be something?
That'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? Where can they find us, Doc, if they do want to get in touch just because?
We're on all of your social media platforms. As we mentioned, Facebook. We're on Instagram. We are on Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, LinkedIn. Did I leave any out? We're on all of them. And all we're at jbandthedoctor.com is the handle. So it's real easy for you. And of course, if you have any want those links, you can head to the show notes or write to jbandthedoctor.com, where all those things are connected right there, including the podcast and our lovely, lovely blog.
That's right. Don't forget the blog. I write that. I write that thing every single week. And I like to think there's some pretty darn good content in there that we don't talk about in the podcast or we don't have in the EML or in our posts. So check it out for me, please. Pretty please.
Doing the
With
solid.
a little Kelly on top. I don't know. All right, everybody. I'm JB. I'm out of here.
The doctor. Peace out, yo.